Hey everybody, Napes and Rhino here. Hope that you are doing well here on our open forum show. NFL, NBA, and some golf. NFL, Leonard Floyd leaving the 49ers to go to Atlanta. And you've got Joey Bosa going from the Chargers to the Bills. Boy, if you're a Niners fan, your team's going to look a hell of a lot different next year, as are your Seahawks, Rhino. It's amazing what's going on in NFL free agency through basically 24 hours plus.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Some teams getting better, some teams getting worse. As you said, the Niners, though, are the one that's sticking out to me, Grant. What's your read on what they're doing right now?
Well, they didn't make the playoffs last year. They finished in last place in the division, and they were knocking on the door and knocking on the door and knocking on the door. And it did not work last year, although I think injuries had a lot to do with it. And you know what? In the NFL, staying stagnant sometimes can be the worst thing. You know, that's why you marvel at a team like the Chiefs. It just seems like whatever happens during the offseason, they're still able to win. And I think it's mainly because of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. But my take on the 49ers is what they were trying to do didn't work, and they're going in a different direction. And we'll see. Right now, to me, I got to put the Rams as the team to beat without even knowing what the draft is going to hold.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also mentioned Bosa to Buffalo, Miller out of Buffalo. What's their window looking like through free agency right
now? Their window is good because of their quarterback and the division that they play in, with, to me, them being the clear leader in the clubhouse when I look at that division. Miami doesn't do it for me. The Jets still are in the same situation, and the Patriots are not grown up enough yet to beat the Bills. So, to me, barring an injury to the quarterback, they're going to win the division already.
Yeah, I think they're kind of the defuncto Niners now. Super Bowl or bust. They are stepping into that spotlight the Niners were in the preseason last year.
I talked about golf. Tiger with another injury, an Achilles injury, surgery. So he's going to not be in the Masters or any other tournaments this year as he gets ready to turn 50. And you'll have to now wait and see whether he joins the Senior Tour, which is the PGA Champions Tour, which I think he will. And that will certainly garner a lot of interest to that tour.
Why do you think he'll join the Seniors Tour?
Because he's 50 and he's able to. And he loves to win. And he can go up there and win. And I think that why not? You know, as soon as you turn 50, you can join that tour and you can still play in the majors because of his exemptions. And that's what he wants to do. He wants to play in the Masters, the US Open, the PGA, and the Open. And if he can play in those 4 tournaments plus the seniors, why not?
Okay, very interesting. He's got his venture going on with TGL Golf, the golf league on ESPN. That's been hit and miss depending on who you talk to. I see him just playing the majors. I, for whatever reason, think playing on the Senior Tour is a step down for him.
Yeah, I don't see it that way, because the reality is, with few exceptions, Phil Mickelson, Tom Watson almost won the Open at Turnberry at age 60. Those are very, very rare circumstances. Tiger is watching his fellow PGA players right now, and he knows he can't win anymore on the tour. He just knows he doesn't hit the ball far enough off the tee. He's not in that, especially now with another surgery. Whereas he can go on the Champions Tour and he can win.
Yeah.
And he can continue to cement his legacy with wins. And he can also play in the majors. He can play in the majors on the PGA Tour and the majors on the Champions Tour. And I think that will stimulate him. You know, at some point, even Tiger will come to the realization that winning on the PGA Tour is a thing of the past. And what can I do now to fuel that competitive fire that I have? And he can do that all over again on the Champions Tour.
Well, definitely give the Champions Tour a big bump, maybe the biggest bump they've had in viewership and notoriety. But we're going to pretty soon be turning the page from Tiger Woods to Charlie Woods. That's not too far off in the horizon, Grant.
Yeah, you're right. As long as Charlie Woods is able to win, I would agree with you 100%. The biggest problem right now with golf is they've got to figure out a way to unify the two tours because, like I was watching the Arnold Palmer this weekend, and I'm watching it, and I don't see Bryson DeChambeau. I don't see Brooke. I don't see Dustin Johnson. I don't see, and it kind of takes away from me the excitement because I know I'm not. I know I'm watching Scotty Scheffler. I know I'm watching Rory. I know I'm watching Morikawa. I get all of that, but I'm not watching truly a competition among the world's best golfers. I'm watching a competition among some of the world's best golfers.
Yeah, yet it adds to some of the majors that they have exemptions to play in, like the Masters at times, the U.S. Open if they qualify, the LIV versus the PGA Tour. But they made that big stir when they were going to unify the tours, and it feels like we've heard nothing since then.
It's starting to percolate again. I just saw a story today as Trump is trying to get a solution to have one tour again. So, we'll see what happens. But the only 4 tournaments that are truly worth watching now are the majors. You got the Players coming up this weekend in Ponte Vedra, Florida, and that's a great tournament with the island green and all the water everywhere and the prize money. But again, you don't have the world's best golfers. You have some of the world's best golfers, and it takes away from it.
Would you rather play the island green at Sawgrass or the 16th at the Waste Management Open, full of people?
I think I would wet my pants on the tee at the 16th at the Waste Management. So I will choose the 17th at Sawgrass.
There's something about that. I think there's something more to stadium golf like that. It's
incredible.
Fun. It's the best. I really enjoy it.
If
you want to, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, if you want to call the show, we're taking your calls on anything. Just click the link and we'll get you in here in a few minutes.
The Pelicans beat the Clippers tonight down in New Orleans. Keep in mind, as you look at the standings, the Kings lose the tiebreaker to the Clippers, so they have to finish a game ahead of the Clippers to finish ahead of them in the standings. As far as Sacramento goes, be very interesting to see how they respond after those 2 losses against a team that is on fire, who's won 9 of 10, and the Golden State Warriors. And we'll see how Monk is feeling. We'll see about where Sabonis is at, because then the next night you go and take on the Phoenix Suns, and you look at the schedule after the Suns game and you're like, oh my God, right? It's like, wow. So
to me, and we kind of talked about this last night, I think the Warriors and the Kings are going separate directions. You've got 4 guys for the Kings on the injury report, 3 significant, LaRavia, Monk, and Sabonis, as you hit on. And I think the dynamic, the wild card to this one is if it gets out of control, I don't think we can see tomorrow night what we saw last night with Doug's style of playing the guys late. You're in Phoenix the next day after Golden State.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how it all unfolds. I talked about this on the postgame show last night. Unacceptable is a word I'm hearing too much from Doug. And it's kind of the same thing I heard from Mike Brown. And I saw the frustration in Mike Brown's press conferences very often, and I'm seeing it now with Doug very often, too often, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, unacceptable plays okay for me. I don't like the frequency. I'll agree with you there. But the somehows, the some ways that Mike Brown used to do, that's where he lost the guys. There was way too many statements like that. To me, Grant, that says we need help outside this locker room.
Well, and he does. He does.
It's a good point. It's a very
he does. Point. How do you think Mike Brown would have done if he had Valanciunas on the roster at the beginning of the year? He'd probably still be coaching.
Very good point. Andre, kick us off tonight. How you doing?
Hey, can you guys hear me this time?
Yep. Go ahead.
Got you. Perfect.
Okay, that's good, man. It hasn't worked at all yesterday. But, it was a tough game yesterday against the New York Knicks. It was very tough watching on my TV because, I just have no, I just don't feel like watching this team because it's just, we can't play defense. It looks like the worst defense in the NBA at times.
Well, I didn't feel good about the game before it started. And I know Doug Christie doesn't like to use excuses, but to me, that's not an excuse. Yeah. It's a reality. 3 games in 4 nights. And I think part of it's on Doug. I think the game before the Clippers game, he didn't need to play his starters 42, 43, and 44 and 45 minutes. He doesn't need to play the guys that long. And, yeah, you don't know that in 48 hours you're going to be playing 53-minute game, but he's playing his guys too many minutes. He just is. And the game before, there was no need to play his starters in the 40s. There was no need for it. And the guys last night were just dog tired. And again, it's not an excuse. It's the reality of the schedule.
Yeah, I agree. You know, Zach LaVine played too much minutes. I was like, what is he doing out there in the fourth quarter?
Makes no sense to me. No sense at all.
Yeah, imagine if he rolls an ankle or he gets hurt.
Yeah, for sure. That's not good.
No doubt. Andre, thanks for calling us and kicking us off tonight, buddy.
Thank you guys.
Good job.
Somebody asked on the chat line, what do I think the Kings' ceiling is? Well, I actually think it's 7th because they're only 2 games back in a loss column of Minnesota. Right now, Golden State is 6th at 37 and 28. And again, you have to keep on looking at the games remaining.
Right.
Okay. Like that's what you look at right now. You have to ask yourself, is it realistic to make up 3.5 or 4 games in the standings when you've already played 64 games and you only have 18 left? And the answer is no, it's not realistic. Okay. It's just not. Can it happen? Well, yeah, of course it can happen. But the other factor is, you also have right now 2 other teams ahead of you to get to Golden State, one being the Clippers and the other being Minnesota. And quite frankly, I don't think the Kings are going to catch Minnesota, who's got 4 more wins than Sacramento. That's substantial at this point in the season.
It is indeed. It's a very good point. Gammon, thanks for calling tonight. Your crown.
Yes, right. Sir. And thank you, gentlemen. Yes, this is just temporary until I'm out of training over here. Big ups to everybody in the military, and I appreciate everything. I do have something to say. So, Grant, when you said, tops is 7th seed, as a fan, I'm going to hold on to the 6th seed. Though, however, I do understand how unreasonable that is. 4 games to make up an 18-game sketch, right? We're talking about doing the math. That's not very good odds. But
not especially when you have the Clippers. Especially when you have to play the Cavaliers twice, the Bucks, the Celtics, the Warriors, Oklahoma City, Memphis. I mean, you also have to look at the schedule in addition to making up those games. You have to look at who you're going to be playing as well.
Absolutely. So, and I say that with a grain of salt, that if somehow the Kings, by the string of grace, that they do get the 6th seed, I'm not going to call in here and go like, hey, Ryan, hey, Grant, I told you, he, you know what I mean? I'm not going to pull that one. But at the same time, they do have a glimmer of hope. But what was really telling was when you watch the press conference and how the players were all very reflective. I thought internally, and the way that they spoke was that game was either going to be a motivator or demotivator. And I want to ask you guys if you kind of read the room the same way when it came down to their closing comments to the end of that game for the Knicks.
Honestly, I don't pay attention much to what players say after games. I never have. I pay a lot more attention to what coaches say than what players say. Players have to, it's an obligatory process. And a lot of times they just say what people think they want to hear. And I've always been one, actions speak louder than words when it comes to player interviews. I don't pay attention to them. Actions speak louder than words. I go by what I see on the court, not by what the players tell me.
Absolutely.
I pay a little bit more attention than Grant does. I like how Malik is candid, him saying the Kings got punked. That's nothing that stands out to me. What I took from the players last night was they're exhausted. They're gassed. You can see it in their body language. You can see it at the podium. So that was my big thing, Gavin.
Which, by the way, not to interrupt, we already knew that. Like, all you had to do was watch the game last night to look at their shooting percentage, how many open shots they missed. That tells you they have tired legs, how many layups they gave up, how they weren't able to close out on threes. All of that tells you that was a very tired team.
Exactly. And that was something for me coming from the military side. I was looking at the game, and then I felt that the posture after the game, when they started speaking, I felt just kind of fell into suit, was just that they sounded tired, and they sound like they're going to have to rebound from it or not. Look, and I don't want to speak for all fans here, but everything you guys are saying are correct, and it's just echoing it from a different echo chamber. But just when we're talking about this team sounds tired or looks tired, if it walks like a duck, sounds like a duck, walks like a duck, it is a duck.
They played 3 games in 4 nights. They should be tired. If they're not tired, then they're not doing their job. So, there's not a team in the NBA that could possibly play 3 games in 4 nights and not be exhausted, regardless of whether they won or lost the game, and travel into it. So, of course, they're tired. Everyone knows that already.
Absolutely. And we try to take advantage of teams when they're tired or when their stars are out. We have stars that are out and we're tired, but they somehow, it seems to be a challenge for this team to be able to overcome that, but it's not a challenge for other teams to overcome this. I really do applaud you guys for being the voice and the truth for this, because it really just kind of cuts through everything. Grant, you're an absolute hero to me, especially with you coming on here and just continue to do this. And then Ryan, future is bright and brighter than your shirt. Nice red shirt. I do love that. That's a beautiful red shirt. Love you guys. Thank you so much for doing this and doing what you do.
Yeah,
appreciate it, buddy. We appreciate what you do. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Want to get to the super chat. Thoughts on the 49ers with all these players getting moved around. We touched upon that at the beginning of the show. I'm happy to answer your question real quickly. It's a different look. What they were doing did not get the job done. They made it to the big show twice and another championship game. They weren't able to knock the door down. And last year they didn't make the playoffs. And I think it was an eye-opening season for John Lynch and the ownership. And I think that finishing in last place in the division opened up their eyes and they're like, we're going to go in a different direction. And I think that's what they're doing.
Yeah, I think they need to focus less on the skilled positions and focus more on the line. They started a little bit by drafting Dominic Pooney last year, and he had a great rookie season by all accounts. And so I would like to see Shanahan invest more in that structure, protecting Purdy, protecting McCaffrey, because I feel like the line has been a little bit suspect since they've lost a few guys.
I don't know what Dennis is talking about. We didn't even get Bosa's brother. Trade Bosa, can't even get his brother to come over. Joey gets hurt all the time, number one. And number two, Buffalo gave him a total package that was well above what the 49ers offered. It wasn't even in the neighborhood. So, and he goes to a team that right now is Super Bowl ready to win. Of course, it makes sense to go to Buffalo. A lot more money and a much better team right now.
The value of draft picks in the NFL just blows me away. The fact that DK Metcalf, a third-round pick, can get DK Metcalf, that just tells you how different the drafts are in sports.
It's totally different, and everything now is predicated on the salary cap in the NFL because it is a hard cap, and you're seeing teams make moves just like the Giants did last year. It's not like the Giants didn't want Saquon Barkley. It's not like the Giants felt that Saquon Barkley wasn't an elite running back. Of course they thought that. It all comes down to your salary cap, right? I mean, it's not a matter of, when you see teams cut players or, for instance, Cooper Kupp of the Rams, you don't think the Rams would love to have Cooper Kupp? Of course they would, but they have a salary cap and they have to make hard decisions. Every team in the NFL goes through that.
Yeah, a lot of talk, really switching gears. We'll get to you in a second, Jake Howe, about Aaron Rodgers possibly going to Pittsburgh with Tomlin. That seems like an interesting dynamic, Grant.
I don't think Aaron Rodgers can play anymore to a point where it's a difference maker. I think the guy's too brittle. I think that there's too much drama. It turns into a circus.
Right.
And quite frankly, I don't see it happening with Aaron. I know the Giants are also rumored to be in that. I'm like, why would the Giants want Aaron Rodgers? Like, that makes no sense to me. You're clearly the worst team in the division. And if you get Aaron Rodgers, let's say you win 1 or 2 more games, all you're doing is screwing up your draft capital for the following year. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah,
Go work around a younger quarterback and try to mold somebody into a starter.
Not to mention, you just had a front row seat to the circus that is Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Doesn't bring in a lot more seats or a lot more butts to the seats. And the Giants have their own 3 rings going on as we speak anyways. So, Jake Howe, thanks for calling.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Good.
Being an open forum, I have a question for you, Grant. I've been wanting to ask you this. So what game would you want to announce and why? A Game 7 of the World Series, Game 7 of NBA Finals, Game 7 of the Stanley Cup, or the Super Bowl?
Stanley Cup, Heartbeat.
Cast, why?
Because hockey is my favorite sport to announce, and I think it's the sport that I do the best. And I would love to do. I was blessed to do the NHL for a couple of games, filling in for the outstanding Randy Hahn on Sharks Television. And one of the great thrills I've always talked about was doing a game at the Great Western Forum when Wayne Gretzky played. That was great. That was a thrill to be able to announce a game on TV with Wayne Gretzky playing in it. But hockey is my favorite sport to announce.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, I've been wanting to ask you that, so
yeah,
thank you.
Good job.
Thank you. The World Series would be last on my list. I would probably go. Well, I know I would go hockey 1. I'd probably go NBA 2 because the style of play fits in with my personality. Super Bowl 3, World Series 4.
Any consideration to Super Bowl 2 because of the eyeballs?
I have never cared about who was watching me. I've never once really thought about even doing playoff games or doing the Kings and the Lakers dramatic Western Conference Finals on radio in 2002. I never consciously said to myself, wow, like there are a lot of people listening. I'll never forget after I did the games in LA, that was Memorial Day weekend. And I had a guy come up to me, I don't know, 2 months, 3 months. I was in a store somewhere. And he goes, hey, I just want to tell you this story. We were in a Little League game and you were announcing the Kings game. And it was so unbelievable that we actually stopped the game and all of us were huddling around the radio listening to you call the Kings-Lakers game. And he goes, it was unbelievable. And I'm like, come on. He goes, no, we actually stopped the game. Umpires, players, parents, we were all on the field listening to you call the game.
That's incredible.
Absolutely
Absolutely incredible.
Wow.
You know what I remember the most about that time of year? Eating so much damn Carl's Jr. because of the bobbleheads. Like
Yeah.
I can't even look at that place anymore. Mike asks, would the NBA be better off with a hard cap?
Oh, of course they would, but it's never going to happen because the players will never agree to that in collective bargaining. I mean, the reality is that if you're the Lakers, your revenue is so much more than Sacramento. You would never be able to compete with the Lakers if you're Sacramento. You would never be able to compete with the Clippers. You would never be able to compete with the Knicks. You would never be able to compete with Chicago. You would never be able to compete with the larger. It would be baseball is what it would be. Who would want baseball? Look at what's going on in baseball right now with the Dodgers, right?
Yeah.
Like, how are the other teams in baseball, with the exception of 3 or 4, able to compete with that? You can't. So right now, why even watch the National League this year? Seriously, why watch it? Like, who could beat the Dodgers, barring injuries? I mean, they have an all-star team. Well, and their payroll is, look at their payroll and compare it to the Marlins payroll.
Because it's the Dodgers. Sometimes they choke. More times than not, they choke.
Yes,
Grant.
Yes, but I guess the point I guess I'm trying to make, if you're a fan of, let's say you're a fan of the Giants right now, the Giants fans aren't stupid, and that's a great rivalry. They know they can't. They know they can't compete with the Dodgers, and the players know they can't compete with the Dodgers.
Yep, not in a 7-game series, and definitely not throughout the season to win the division. No doubt about that. I would say this, Mike, the NBA is trying to institute with this new CBA different nuances that try to level the playing field if you are going to be a team that's in the luxury tax and over the cap to try to keep. So a great example, Grant, is if you're in an apron, then you can't sign a guy that's been released if he was making over $12.5 million. It's trying to redistribute some of the talent that might be higher level talent that can sign for a veteran minimum with a much better team or a contender.
There are all types of formulas out there in baseball and other leagues that have inequities with salaries to try to make it competitive for the smaller market teams. But at the end of the day, does it work?
Not really. Nope.
Yeah.
Does not. Your Oklahoma Cities are the exception to the rule. And I would probably argue, I think Chuck or Charles Barkley did this last week, that we're not giving enough attention to the Oklahoma Cities, to the Clevelands that have done this and done it the right way.
Very true. But the last time Oklahoma City was in this position, what happened?
They lost.
Kevin Durant wanted out. Why?
Yeah.
Instead of winning a championship in Oklahoma City, he wanted to go to a bigger market with more notoriety on a team that was already laden with stars. But again, he left instead of staying there. So, like, we're hearing the same thing about Giannis, who had a completely different tone. I like it here. I want to stay here, and signed his deal. But now there's some talk about, him leaving. And if that happens, Milwaukee's nothing again.
Yeah. Well, I look at it different because Milwaukee got their championship.
Yes,
Oklahoma City did not. Yeah. But yeah, I think it would be the exception to the rule. If you're a small market team, you draft one of those guys and you get them to stay through their prime for their entire career. That doesn't usually happen. Steph Curry, even for him to possibly be a Warrior his entire career, rare these days. Very rare.
There's no perfect solution. That's for sure.
Definitely. Heck, excuse me. I'm a Giants fan and can't blame the Dodgers finding a loophole to defer contracts. But Manfred, let it happen, ruined MLB. David Stern would not let this happen. Not even a competitive field.
As far as what David Stern would allow and not allow, the systems in the two sports are as night and day as you can have it. So David Stern would have to be dealing with a different set of circumstances. So that's a very difficult theme to even get into a topic, because the baseball financial system and the basketball, it's totally different. Totally different.
Arturo says Markelle Fultz not taking advantage of his opportunity. There's a reason why he was on the waiver wire. Napes, you've been saying that all along, buddy.
The minute I heard that Markelle Fultz was coming to Sacramento, I was like, oh my God, really? Like, why do you want Markelle Fultz? And, all right, I want to get to this. I was watching the Cal game because of Pacers' son, but I noticed they were in the ACC tournament. When did that happen? Hey, the Beatles broke up too. Did you know that? But back to Markelle Fultz. It's the same thing I said earlier in the year,
right,
when the Kings signed Doug McDermott. Good players, and I said the same thing about Jay Crowder. And what happened with Kings fans? Jay Crowder played in his first game and played very well, and Kings fans went gaga, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, hold your horses. Hold your horses. Again, Kings fans, this is like the best thing about them and the worst thing about them. They love their players, which is great. The worst thing about the majority of Kings fans is they overhype and overvalue their players. They do it all the time. Every year for decades, they've been doing this. You don't go by what a player has done. You go by what their name is. And you're thinking, oh, Markelle Fultz, oh, my God, he played good in Orlando. He was the number pick in the draft and blah, blah, blah. Well, he can't play. Doug McDermott, I remember when he came in Sacramento and scored 28 points. No, can't play. Players that are good, okay, that have had multiple workouts for different teams during the year and are still unemployed, there's a reason for that. Just, you got to open up your eyes sometimes and be objective.
Yeah, on the flip side of that, I think Kings fans at times undervalue players, and it blows my mind. Like the whole discussion about Keegan Murray the last year and a half. I am on Team Keegan in terms of what I see from him. In fact, I don't even know if we can truly judge what he is as a player, because he's never been a featured player for this team, but he's always done what he's asked and gotten better and guards multiple positions.
but maybe he'll never be a featured player regardless of what team he goes to, and then it's up to him to be the best version of whatever. It's a third piece, fourth piece, or fifth piece. He's never going to be a featured player. Can we agree on that?
Yeah, I can agree on that. I don't think he could be a number one, but I think he could definitely be probably ceiling a high level number two, definitely a number three for a team. I mean, last night in a game where he played major minutes the night before, the game's already a blowout. He's denying the inbound pass on a point guard, gets the steal. It's full court pressure, puts it in. A guy like that, it's just, to me, I continue to see the growth in him, and there's a lot of value there.
And I'm with you. You used the word growth. I still see that in him too. I'm also on Team Keegan. I'm a big fan of his.
Yep.
So but again, we can't look at our chat line.
Yep,
right?
Exactly right.
And soft and not reliable. Well, I mean, he brings his lunch pail every day, and I equate him to a baseball player that at times goes through a slump at the plate, but is a Gold Glove fielder, right? I mean,
yeah,
he brings his glove to the ballpark every day. Keegan, very rarely do we talk about, he didn't play good defense tonight, right? How often do we do that? Very rarely.
It almost never happens.
I mean, we're always complimenting him for that. So
really,
I'm on Team Keegan too.
The only time that happens is if Keegan gets in foul trouble. That is literally usually the only time it happens.
Yeah. All right. Hey, I want to talk to you about Element Mortgage and that man right there in Connor, who has tons of experience, has a phenomenal team behind him at Element Mortgage. If you are in the market to buy a home, looking to sell your home, refinance, you need to get in touch with Connor because he is awesome. Here's his number, 916-505-1006. That's 916-505-1006. He is a local guy from Folsom. He is somebody that has been in the business for a long time with great success. And as I said, a phenomenal team behind him. And he's a big-time Kings fan. So it's perfect. Give him a call when you're in the market to buy, sell, or refinance at 916-505-1006. And boy, that lake is looking beautiful, isn't it?
Oh, man.
Wow.
It's cold, though. It's a cold lake, Napes.
Yeah, I'm not ready to go for a swim. I'm not saying that. That's for sure.
We've got clone representation. Nick and Fort Wayne. In the past 10 years, only 4 teams have won a Super Bowl. Is that good or bad for football, Grant?
Well, it's bad for football if you're not a fan of one of those teams, right?
Yes, or if they don't draw ratings.
So, but here's the beauty of the NFL, unlike all the other sports. In the NFL, you can go from really bad to really good in 1 year. The Washington Commanders are an example. Last year, the Houston Texans were the example. So if you draft well and you get that one guy or guys, you can go from a 5-win team into the playoffs overnight. We see it almost every year in the NFL. And I think that is the beauty of the NFL, unlike a lot of other sports.
It's a very good point. We were kind of hitting on this, but we will answer it. Do you think Keegan has hit his full potential, Napes?
No, I think offensively there's more there.
I agree. I think defensively there's a little bit more there as well. Let's see. Connor has a man's beard. So Connor getting some beard love now.
Yeah.
There you go. He's a wrestler. Was a wrestler, by the way, y'all.
Somebody said I was warned you. Oh, not yet. Sasha Vezenkov. Yeah. Again, everyone, when I mean everyone, I'm generalizing here. It's a figure of speech. Everyone thought they were getting Luka, all right? Because he was the MVP of the European League. Well, you weren't getting Luka. You were getting, and I always talk about this. I wouldn't know Sasha Vezenkov if he sat across the table from me and had a meal. I wouldn't know who he is, okay? This was before I saw him play with Sacramento. But I have friends that scout in Europe, and I called them up and I talked to them, and they all told me the same thing. Nothing more than a role player. Nothing special. They all told me that. They were all right.
Yeah. back overseas, now playing. I'm bringing this up not so much for the statement about Keegan's ball handling, but I think that is one of the overlooked flaws of this Kings team.
I agree.
Ball handling as a team is not great. You don't have that true point guard, something you have asked for since the Beam team, and nobody can efficiently get them into the offense. It is always a work to get into the offense.
I love that comment right there. Keegan's ball handling is subpar, and I would agree with everything you just said there. I think it's his biggest weakness as an NBA player, and this offseason, when I play golf, and he loves to play golf, I would have a basketball with me, and in between shots, I would be dribbling the ball to my next shot on the fairway with all different types of undulations, and I would keep my golf glove on. And honestly, he needs to be working on his ball handling the entire offseason.
That's old school right there. So if somebody has a fumbling problem, do you carry the football through the hallway?
Yes. Well, you remember Jay Will used to practice dribbling with work gloves on.
I did not remember that.
Oh, absolutely. Used to practice with work gloves on and did all kinds of stuff that no one had ever done before. And he was so gifted with the basketball.
Very interesting. Ball handling, I will say this from my time in the game, that is luckily a skill that you can be taught. That just takes a lot of work in the gym, and you're able to pick it up. That's something that is very important. He does have good hands. I think we've hit this. The Markelle Fultz hype has died. Those minutes are for Devin Carter. Have you liked what Devin's done the last few games?
Yeah, I do. I don't know if I can count on him in the biggest of games coming up, but I know I can't count on Markelle Fultz, so I'm okay to see Devin Carter make a mistake or two along the way because I'm looking at the big picture. So, yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I think the game has slowed down a little bit for him since spending some time in Stockton, exactly what he needed. Speaking of the Kings, how do you handle, let's say, Laravia, Sabonis? Well, let's just stick to Sabonis. How would you handle Sabonis over the next 2 games if he could play tomorrow night, but, maybe it's rushing it a little bit?
I would not play him until I'm confident that he can play without re-injuring his hamstring.
Okay. I agree with you.
That's how I would answer that question. I mean, I'd be much better missing Sabonis for 2 more games than for all the games coming up against Boston, Milwaukee, Oklahoma City, etc. And the other part is the Kings have played pretty well without Sabonis, so that also enters my mind.
Valanciunas has saved the season for the Kings.
Yes.
A lot of people are going to look at Zach LaVine. It has been Valanciunas hands down, and quite frankly,
you hit it on the head. He has saved the season. You're exactly right.
I would rather have Sabonis in Phoenix than I would rather have him in Golden State. So.
I would agree. I'll tell you what else, talking about saving. New Works Plumbing will save you from a lot of stress and a lot of grief when you call them, when you have a plumbing problem or concern. They're awesome, and they are available around the clock, 24/7. New Works Plumbing, they've got a fix for you. Again, all plumbing issues, want to do something different, whatever the case may be, they are awesome. Get a hold of them. New Works Plumbing, they've got a fix for you.
So Flores, Keon needs, first off, he's a flow player. When he's in the flow of the game, that's when he shoots the best, but the Kings have gone away from him completely. There was the second half of the game against the Clippers. He didn't even get a shot, or excuse me, the fourth quarter. He's showing his ability to make some tough shots. He made 2 of those last night against New York, but you've got to try to get him involved, Grant, much like the Kings have to try to get Keegan involved.
I think one of the biggest questions going into this offseason is how do the Kings see Keon in the future? Do they see him as a starter, or do they see him as a 6th man, 7th man type of a guy? And then they've got to retool their team to fit him into the role that they want him to be in. Right now, he's a 6th or 7th man who starts if there's an injury to one of the starting guards.
It's a great point, and I think you can also say the big question in the offseason is how is Keon Ellis going to see Keon Ellis. He's only set to make $2.3 million next year.
Well, he's certainly one of the great values in the league right now. I think we can all agree on that.
I don't think I'm overvaluing Keon here when I say probably all 30 teams would want Keon Ellis if you had him in the room. Yeah.
And then we also have to ask, how does Keon view what's been going on in the locker room and the instability in the front office and everything else? So you got to keep that in mind. I mean, he saw what De'Aaron Fox did, the comments that De'Aaron made. I mean, Keon sees everything that's going on. We've already heard rumblings about Sabonis now is wondering what the hell's going on. It's not a great vibe. It's not. You got to be concerned about that.
You know, Mike Brown, this is my opinion. I have not heard this from anybody, but Mike Brown was all about talking about accountability and, you know, making sure that the players are holding each other accountable. And I think Mike Brown used Keon Ellis as an example because he was the only guy that he could afford to hold off the floor. At least he thought he could afford. And I think that was Mike Brown's fatal flaw in
I agree with you.
The way he handled Keon Ellis. I mean, it was just crazy.
Made no sense. It made absolutely no sense, especially when you look at how well Keon played for him in the final part of last year.
Exactly right. You know, he kind of did that with Davion in Game 7 against the Warriors, the Beam team.
Yes. Yep. And Steph Curry scored 50 points.
Yep. Grant, do you think Keegan's calm and relaxed demeanor is a sign of lack of killer instinct or competitiveness?
I don't care about someone's demeanor. It means nothing to me. Bill Belichick's demeanor on the sideline is the same for 60 minutes. He was a pretty good coach, right? I don't, Tom Landry, the great coach of the Dallas Cowboys, was expressionless, and he was the best coach of his era. I don't go by players' demeanor. Some players are the same all the time. I'm a New York Giants fan. Eli Manning was the MVP of 2 Super Bowls. His demeanor never, ever changed. Never. And people were like, well, gee, he doesn't care. He's not competitive. He doesn't get upset. I don't care about someone's demeanor. My eyes tell me how someone's demeanor is. I go by what I see. I go by effort. I go by intensity in terms of, are they playing all out? Like the defense, I look at other things. I don't go by someone's personal characteristics because the reality is all of our personalities are different and you have to be who you are. You can't manufacture a personality. We see it in golf all the time. People talk about Pete Sampras, expressionless, emotionalist. Well, he was the best tennis player of his era. Right. And people wanted Pete Sampras to be John McEnroe. They wanted him to be Jimmy Connors. They wanted him to be somebody else. Well, he can't be somebody else. He's Pete Sampras. Keegan Murray can't be Ron Artest. I saw someone talk about that earlier on the chat line. He's not Ron Artest. He's Keegan Murray. Okay. He is who he is.
Yep. I think it's very well said. And Bill Belichick, by the way, he can pull girls that are in their 20s. What's that?
Yes.
40, 50-year age kid?
Yes. And you know what? You only live once. Be happy, right?
Exactly. How or will you pay Ellis or trade him when the time comes? If you pay him, what's the market like for him, Grant?
Well, when will that discussion be had?
This summer. His contract's up next year.
Right. So what do you think we're talking about?
I think it's a great question because of this new CBA. We've seen one cycle of free agency, and let's look at Malik Monk, Grant, as the first study model. I don't think that there was as much money on the other side for Malik Monk. I think that played into the decision to come back here to Sacramento. Now, as for Keon, Keon by himself, I don't think there's a ton of trade value there, Grant. I think it would probably have to be packaged with he's a very nice side to like a Sabonis or, a bigger trade. Financially, he's probably, to me, $7 to $9 million a year, you think, in this CBA, in this market?
It's a great question because a lot of times we put labels on players not based on their ability, but what they're making currently. And that can
True.
be dangerous. If you didn't know anything about Keon Ellis's contract and you watched him play for 10 games, right? Any 10 games during the course of the last 2 months, and you had no idea who he was, you didn't know whether he was drafted, you didn't know anything about him other than the fact that you were at a basketball game and I told you, I want you to focus in on one player for 10 games in a row. Okay? And then at the end of those 10 games, I asked you, okay, evaluate that player for me. You know about all the other players in the league and what they're making. Put a value on Keon Ellis based on what you saw in the 10 games. I can sure as hell tell you it would be well over $10 million a year.
Absolutely.
It would probably be based on what other players are making. You would probably value him at over $15 million a year. Okay. So it depends how you look at this. We have a tendency to label. It's the same thing that just happened with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold had a great season after a miserable career leading up to Minnesota. But because he did not play well at the final game of the year and did not play well in the playoffs, he probably cost himself over $100 million. But if I had shown you Sam Darnold in the first 15 weeks of the season or the first 16 games of the season, but didn't show you the tape of the 17th week or the playoffs, you would have given him a completely different contract. So I also want to go by this. It only takes one team and one general manager to love you to open up their checkbook and make things very difficult for you as a franchise if you can't make that player happy.
Yeah. Keon's value is this. There's not to be wired the way he is defensively and mentally. That is like something that's ingrained in you. It's something that's not taught. He loves defense, and to have a piece like that, every championship team, every successful team needs that piece. And there's not many of those guys out there like that. That's why they're so valuable.
Yeah. I mean, Keon Ellis to me and Keegan Murray are two different, totally different for a variety of reasons because of what I'm just talking about.
Yeah.
Keegan, a high draft pick, has started every game pretty much of his career. Keon is a guy that came from nowhere that the majority of people had never heard of. I'm not talking about the people in the league. I'm talking about fans and media members. Had never heard of, didn't know anything about, and has burst onto the scene. And you see that every now and then in the NBA. It happens. It's one of the beauties of the G League. You sometimes see a player come up through the G League, and all of a sudden, they're a big-time player on the big stage. And what happens? They make a lot of money.
Yeah, that's why the NBA needs to focus more on the success stories like that in the G League. If they want that league to grow, you have got to, because it's the biggest part of this new CBA. That's why draft picks are now becoming more valuable. Dumping salary costs you a second round pick. Furious asks, Levine turnovers an issue? I'll let you start.
Yeah, it is an issue. And I think a lot of his turnovers are just bad basketball decisions as opposed to poor basketball handling of the basketball. I talked about this in the Knicks game. Just an inexplicable pass from the near side of the floor towards his bench into the free throw area, top of the key, to a cutter that had a man behind him and a man off to his side that had no chance of being completed. And I think it was OG stole the ball, and the Knicks come down on a odd man break and kick it out for an easy three. And you just can't do that. So, yeah, I am a little concerned about his decision-making.
He's Sacramento's version of Danny Dimes, Grant. Really
there you go.
Is.
Thank you for that.
I'm sorry. It's either a great pass or it is just what you said. Completely head scratching.
Hey, I want to tell you about Sunrise Landing in Calusa. You go to calusasunrise.com. You will get all of the information you need at Sunrise Landing from Blazona Development. Many models to choose from, good access. The Calusa Golf and Country Club is adjacent to Sunrise Landing. You also have no Melrose, no homeowners. Easy to get to. I-5, Highway 20, Highway 45. It's Sunrise Landing. You go to CalusaSunrise.com and you will get all the information you need. That's CalusaSunrise.com and Sunrise Landing.
Would you rather have Keon, and I'm going to put this in the context of where they're at in their careers right now. Would you rather have Keon Ellis or Alex Caruso?
Probably Keon Ellis. How about you?
Keon Ellis. I'm with you there. Definitely with you. I think this is a bad take. First off, you're calling Keegan Murray an old dog. What are we doing? Guys that stay in college are more ready to step on the court in the NBA. Period. End of story. Here's the other thing. If you look at this Beam Team era, I think Keegan Murray is the picture perfect example of Mike Brown. When Mike Brown stepped up to the press conference and the table when he got hired, he wanted this to be a defensive team. If there was any player, any pick that was a Mike Brown pick, it was Keegan Murray. And look at how he's been molded along the way. There's a lot of Mike Brown influence to me on Keegan, and I think you can teach him ball handling, Grant.
Well, it's got to happen soon because he's now completing his third year, and there hasn't been a lot of improvement in his ball handling, and I'm expecting that to be the number one priority this offseason.
He doesn't handle the ball that much, though.
But when he does handle the ball, he has to do a better job of it.
Yeah, I could say that about every single king.
True.
The ball handling on this team across the board is just below average at best.
Yep.
Hey, welcome in.
Hi, good evening, gentlemen. I wanted to ask you guys a question. I think looking ahead to next season, I think the Kings are gonna finish around the same place, whether that's 8 to 10. Looking at San Antonio.
Now, how could you possibly say that? That is just absolutely ridiculous to even have this conversation about how they're going to finish next season when you have no idea what trades they're going to make and who they're going to draft. That's ridiculous. So, I mean, stop it already, would you please?
Yeah, but
no, I mean, you realize how stupid that is? I'm sorry, because you're a fan of the show and I enjoy hearing from you. But I want you to just think about what you just said. Do you know how stupid that is? Like, you don't even know what trades the Kings are going to make. You don't know about whether they're going to have a draft pick or not. You don't know about who they might acquire in free agency. And you're already talking about next year without even knowing what the roster could possibly look like. Is Sabonis going to be on the team? Is Keegan going to be on the team? What are they going to do with DeRozan and Levine? Are they both going to be on the team? Are they going to take a big piece like Keegan and make a blockbuster deal like they did with Sabonis for Halliburton? Are they going to be able to attract a player via free agency who fits an absolute need, such as a point guard? Like you don't have no idea.
Yeah, I think my main question was going to be, assuming around the same place. What do you guys think about the play-in format? Are you guys fan of it, or?
I'm not a fan of it. I think it devalues the regular season. But again, right now, if you look at what's going on in the respective conferences, there would be a lot of teams that would be kind of like down and out. But I'm not a fan of it. No, I'm not. I think when you play 82 games, there has to be value on the 82 games. And to me, 82 games is enough to determine whether or not you should be a playoff team or not. And now all of a sudden you're going to play 82 games and one game, or in this case, 2 games could determine whether you are a playoff team or not. I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah, look, in the Eastern Conference, every team from 7 down has a negative net rating.
Yep.
I give me 1 through 8 straight up, and I know this is very hard to do because of the travel, but I just wish they would take the best 18 or 16 teams, Grant, across the NBA.
Well, you look, I do too. You look at Chicago, they're 27-38. They're going to be in the play-in. A team that's 27-38 or 10 or 11 games under 500 should not, let me repeat, should not have a chance to go to the playoffs.
Yep.
They just shouldn't.
Yeah, and I think it can be potentially cruel for a 7th place team to potentially fall out of the playoffs. But if you look at the history since his induction, No, there's only been 2 times where the 9th place team has made it. So I think more often.
How many years? How many years? How many years have they had to play in?
I think they started it in 2021. There was this weird format in 2020 where it was just between the
I mean,
7th and 8th.
I mean, there's not enough
Yeah.
data to really talk about, trends about this is the only team. You haven't had it only 3 years, so I don't think so. Here's the bottom line: the NBA is a gimmick league now. Their in-season tournament in Vegas is a gimmick. Their play-in tournament is a gimmick. It's a gimmick. It's about money. It's about trying to keep more teams relevant towards the end of the season. Baseball did it when they added the extra wild card team. Why did they do that for? Because there were too many teams that had nothing to play for, that now all of a sudden fans want to go to the ballpark because their teams have a chance to become a wild card team. That's what it's all about. It's all about the dollars.
Yep. Here's the other thing that I don't like if I'm a 1 seed. Like, I'm not a huge fan of a team coming in off of 2 games, playing in the play-in and winning, possibly getting some momentum. Just give me 8-1 straight up 7-game series.
Yep. I'm with you.
Do it. Anything else, Tay?
All right. Thanks for your feedback, gentlemen.
Hey, thank you. You have a good night. Appreciate it.
Whew.
I should have asked Ty what he's going to do for his birthday next year.
You're killing me, Napes. You're killing me.
Well, I mean, why are we? It's March 11th.
I know.
Come on.
Okay, I try to look at like maybe where he's thinking. He's thinking if you have the same front office in place and we kind of have an idea of how they operate, they're probably not going to get anybody in free agency. Luka's now in the with the Lakers. Teams are getting better. The Kings
why
are
do you
in
assume
purgatory.
they're not going to get anybody in free agency?
Usually they do not get a big free agent.
Malik Monk was retained last year. That was a big move, yes?
Yes, that was a big move.
They got DeMar DeRozan from Chicago. That was a big move, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so we didn't know. No one had that on their radar last year at this time. I'm not talking about Monk. I'm talking about DeRozan, correct?
Yeah, you're talking about the 2 biggest moves out of the last 4 years that happened together.
So why would I think that can't happen again this summer?
Yeah, it's a fair point. I'm just saying where he might have been thinking like that was the outlier. That was a couple standard deviations away from the mean.
All right.
I will say this though, bringing up Sabonis, I think you and I disagree on this. I don't know that Sabonis has as much value as everybody thinks on the open market or on the trade market.
Well, I think he does have value. When you say as much, I don't know how to quantify that.
Well, let me give you his contract. Yeah. So next year he's making 43.6. The year after that he's making 46.7, and the final year, which will be 27-28, he's making 49.9 million.
How much money is Zach LaVine making?
LaVine is making slightly less, 44 this year, 47 next year, and 48.9 the year after.
Okay, so the Kings took a player that's making in the same neighborhood who has a long history of injuries and had no problem acquiring him. Why would a team not want a player that pretty much plays every game every year and puts up incredible numbers every time he's on the floor? What is it about him that you don't think teams would value?
I think that Zach LaVine, you can probably fit in. You hit the nail on the head. The injuries. That's the concern with Zach LaVine. You can find a way to fit him into all 30 teams. He's a natural scorer. He's a natural shooter. Sabonis is more, to me, a little bit of a niche player. He's not a center. He's not a power forward. Do you have to run the offense through him? Do you not? Where do you put him? And at that number, I feel like he's a guy where you either have to adjust the system to him or it might be a little bit of an awkward fit.
Okay.
At 49 million, that's a lot in this CBA.
It is a lot in this CBA, but I keep on hearing over and over again that the NBA has become a positionless league.
But Sabonis isn't positionless.
Well, How
He
about he's
doesn't.
just a really good player? Can we
He
just
is
characterize him as that?
absolutely. I love Sabonis.
See,
I'm
yeah.
just trying to play the other side. I
Well,
don't know that every team looks at Sabonis and says we can fit him into what we do.
if I'm the general manager of the Kings, which by the way I don't think will be Monty McNair, the first thing I'm doing is I'm getting myself a bona fide point guard, and I'm going to do
Yes.
whatever I have to do to get a bona fide point guard. I'm tired of talking about the Kings every year without a true bona fide point guard. It's ridiculous. It's the NBA.
Crazy.
It's like talking about an NFL team without a quarterback. It's pretty much the same thing.
Spot freaking on. It draws the efficiency of this basketball team. Like we talk about Cleveland, we talk about Oklahoma City, where there's like very little wasted movement. The reason that the Kings have so much wasted movement and they're not efficient is because of that one position, the point guard position. You're asking everybody to do it, and you're taking people and playing them out of position.
Manuel says Sabonis to Brooklyn. That's the talk. I haven't heard that, but I mean, I know Jordi Fernandez loves Sabonis, and so that wouldn't be something that would surprise me.
Yeah, look, I think that if you let's say we're putting together our puzzle pieces.
Yeah.
There's probably 5 puzzle pieces here, but you can only keep 4 on this roster right now. What 4 are you keeping? If you're going to try to fix this thing, retool it, rebuild it.
I'm probably keeping Ellis, Monk, Sabonis, and Murray.
All right. Ellis, Monk, Sabonis, and Murray. I'm definitely keeping Murray and Ellis. Probably Murray, Ellis, Monk, and Valanciunas.
Valanciunas was on my mind, and he would be the next guy.
I think that gets you closer to a rebuild, more in that category. It gives you room for a couple of these guys to either sink or swim offensively in Ellis and Murray, and it frees up a lot more room for you to operate. I don't want to lose Sabonis. I'm just looking at if the Kings do end up doing something dramatic and Sabonis doesn't want to be here, I still think there's some good core pieces that the Kings have to work with.
All right, fair enough. I could be talked into that. I wouldn't want Trae Young. Nick says Trae Young would be nice. I'm not a Trae Young guy.
I'm not a Trae Young. No. You need a Josh. Can you imagine a Josh Hart playing pick and roll with Sabonis, Grant?
Be great.
Can you imagine TJ McConnell? Could you imagine Austin Reeves? Could you imagine? Yeah. Those are the types of, you pin Sabonis with a guy like that. Good night now.
Yeah, I don't want Trae Young. A lot of people are on there. Trae Young is very difficult to coach. He's very difficult to play with. I'm hearing a lot of negative things out of Atlanta. I'm not a Trae Young guy. I wouldn't want him on the team.
Too much flash, not enough fundamentals for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yep.
That's one of those quiet things that if you look at the Kings subliminally, excuse me, I can't talk tonight. Fundamentals. I know. I shouldn't have gone for it.
Should have Jerry try to say that word at the halftime of the next game.
Okay, I can try to squeeze that in for him. Just put it on a card. Hey, Jerry, read this really quick. Fundamentals. That's what many of these best players on this team thrive off of. Ellis, Murray, Sabonis. Fundamentals.
So we've got Thursday and Friday. All right. Golden State, Phoenix. And the big question is who will be on the floor for Sacramento?
Yeah. Will you have LaRavia? Will you have Monk? Will you have Sabonis? Those are the ones that you're keeping your eyes on.
If you don't have Monk against the Warriors, I don't see any way you can win the game. You don't have enough offense.
Yeah, great.
I know Radin can go off. I know, but I just against the Warriors, I just think you really need Monk, but we'll see. And I listen, Sabonis took a lot of flack 2 years ago for his poor play in the playoffs, but this year he's played very well against the Warriors.
And Monk has not been, last night he scored okay, but he's not been given a lot offensively or having those big outbursts as of late.
No.
Yeah, you're probably right. I think LaRavia, though, also, that is it. For the defensive end, for a team like the Warriors with Jimmy Butler, you got to have that utility tool available to you. Now everybody wants to talk. Here we go. We lit up a conversation. Umar, what's up?
Hey there. Good evening, Grant and Ryan. I hope you both are well. First, just a note of appreciation to you both. The amount of content that you guys put out almost on a daily basis with the quality information analysis. So just wanted to say thank you. Always brightens up the day, cheers up the day. So thank you both for that.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for being part of our channel and a support of ours. We appreciate it. So we pat you right back there as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And my question for you guys is this, and it's about the front office. If Coach Brown's fatal flaw was his inflexibility when it came to the coaching and that rubbing players off the wrong way, hurting the morale, I think the front office's fatal flaw has been probably their point guard, what you guys have been talking about, not picking one up sooner, but then also the lack of picking up a proper wing. And I know a lot of people have been talking about that. And I think in that article from Sam Amick or the ESPN article, I think they made a mention, or Fox was making a mention, that he would have liked to have seen a wing and it didn't happen. And of course, now we're seeing the benefits of size in Laravia and Valanciunas. But now, with that said, and this is my hot take, and I wanted your opinion on this. I don't know if, let's assume worst case scenario, that we do not make the play-in and the front office is on the hot seat. I don't know if we can afford to go through losing the front office, going through just that dysfunction of not only having lost your head coach, but now a rebuild involving the front office as well. And yes, granted, they've dropped the ball on many different things. They've done some things well too, and obviously we've talked a lot about Keon Ellis today, so that being one of them. So I just don't know if we're looking for this team to make a jump, sooner rather than later, if we can afford to cut loose the front office as well as just having lost our head coach, and who knows what the players are thinking then. Thank you guys for
Well,
always taking my call.
let me answer that. If the Kings don't make the play-in, everyone will be gone. I can guarantee you that. You can talk about it right here. Write it down on a piece of paper. March 11th, 2025. Grant Napier said if they don't make the play-in, everyone's gone. The coaching staff and the front office will be gone. I know the owner. I know how he thinks. There's no way that they'll survive that. Right now, they have a very large lead over the 11th place Phoenix Suns. If they were to crumble and not make the play-in, that would be devastating for a lot of people's jobs with the Kings.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that would be?
I would do the same thing, by the way. Yes, if I were the owner and this team does not make the playoffs for 2 years in a row, I would start all over. I would, yes.
Oh, right.
Everybody is talking about, especially with Sam's piece, what's the vision for this team? With the owner, I don't think you're ever going to have a direct vision. I think it's going to be a constantly moving target. But this offseason, I think you have to have a decision. And that decision being, are we going to try to take a run at it legitimately and maybe get that wing that you're talking about and use the guys we have the proper way, or are we going to blow it up? And the question becomes, will that be in the Kings' hands, or is that going to indirectly be in the players' hands?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hey, we really appreciate you taking the time to call the show, and thank you for your kind words. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Amar.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right, let's get to some more calls, buddy.
All right. David, thanks for waiting.
Hey, guys.
Hi, David.
So I'm really interested on this Keegan Murray kind of topic. I don't see it what this Ryan, you said he could be a 2 or possibly a 3. I I just don't see it in this guy. He's declined in each year of scoring, except he started at 12.2, then he went to 15.2, now he's at 12.3. He's a defensive player. Great. Hallelujah. He's not going to make a defensive team, first, second, or third. So what I'm saying is that he shot the 3. He basically stood in the corner his whole rookie year, made all kinds of He did. He made all kinds of threes, broke the rookie record. Congratulations. He doesn't look for a shot. If he does, it's maybe once or twice a game, a drive, once or twice a game, and that's it. He gets the ball, he'll pass it. Pass. I'm not seeing what everybody else sees in this guy. And like you said, Grant, the Kings fans, they get on the bandwagon of a player, they ride it. They think the guy is Jason Tatum to some degree. And I'm not seeing it with this kid. Again, he's young. It's his 3rd year. Now, they're going to pay him the max because he had a sensational rookie year, a subpar 2nd year, subpar 3rd year. That's a conversation that I don't know if it's money, but someone's going to have with this guy. Are they going to pay him this max? Because that's going to be coming up. And he's just not the guy. This is a 4th round. This is a 4th pick overall. And there are players, granted, Shane Sharp can be injured. But when Shane Sharp shows up, the guy can play. And Ivy. Now, I'm not saying that you can't go, reverse, go back to the future and pick these guys. But it was a safe pick. And like you said, Ryan, it was a Mike Brown pick because Mike Brown is intensified by defense. Okay, defense wins championships. We know that. But
it was not a Mike Brown pick. That is absolutely untrue. But go ahead.
Okay, strike it. But I'm just saying, like, right now, I don't see the potential of Murray. I think he's reached a ceiling. He at most, at best, he looks like a deer in a headlight. Now, can he drive? Sure. But again, how often is that? Once or twice a game? I mean, come on. And then he threw up an air ball. I mean, the guy, it's like it's. I just don't see the consistency in the guy. And another point too, they had a chance to trade him, but they were saying he was off the table. He's untouchable. Well, God, they had Pascal Siakam there. Sure, the Kings would have had to pay for him at a max. I get that. But if the Kings had that window and they wanted to the window was ruled tight for that one first year of the Beam team or even last year, take it. I mean, I just don't see it. What's
okay, fair enough. David, thanks for the call, man. You have a good evening. We appreciate your thoughts.
Fair point.
All right.
GP,
we'll wrap up the show with you, buddy.
3, 2, 1.
Hey, how you guys doing?
What's happening?
What's up?
Hey, Grant. Good, man. I just wanted to chime in. I know you guys were talking some football earlier.
Yep.
Grant, I wanted to talk to you about my Raiders. I know we got Geno. Who do you see us potentially drafting? Do you think we'll get a young QB who sits back there maybe, like a season or even a half a season until we have to move Geno to the bench there? What do you think,
I don't see Geno going to the bench this year. I don't. They're paying him too much money, and he's too good. There's not a rookie that I think they would be able to draft that would be able to take his job this year. So I don't see that as a scenario that will play out. I could see them drafting a quarterback, but that quarterback's not going to step onto the field this year, barring injury. I think they have a lot of other needs right now that they really need to solidify to be competitive in that very difficult division, because Denver got a lot better last year. The Chargers, to me, I was very surprised for them to pick up Harris from Pittsburgh. They're a different looking team. They just, kept Mack for another year. They lose Bosa, but he's hurt all the time. Jim Harbaugh's got a good track record of making teams good in a hurry. So that division's brutal. The Raiders need a lot of help.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree that any rookie that we do get, I do agree he should sit behind Geno, and obviously learn behind the QB, QB1. So I like the guy from Florida, Cam Ward.
Yep, I don't see it yet. The Raiders are going to have to move up in the draft to get him, because most people have him going 1 or 2.
Let me remind you guys really quick. Matt Flynn got paid a lot of money in Seattle to be the starting quarterback, and this guy from Wisconsin, 3rd-round pick Russell Wilson, won that job under Pete Carroll.
That's a good point. Thank you for bringing that up. That's a good point. But Pete
Okay.
Carroll also wanted Geno Smith. I can't imagine him not starting Geno Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey,
no, I
yeah.
like Geno throwing the ball down the field. I think we do have to take more chances down the field because the Raiders are really never known for that, and it
That's
is a
all
tough.
they've been known for. What do you mean they've never known for that? That's all they've been known for. That's all Al Davis preached every single year.
Yeah,
every
no,
single year.
I know
Yeah.
they did. I know they did, Grant, but they, for some reason, we're always known for throwing short passes because of our QB situation. I know they had receivers going down the field. Even Trey Adams, we had him. He was frustrated as heck, with the QB situation. But that's near here or there. I think they messed up when they hired the guy from the Patriots, the head coach there,
Josh McDaniels. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, he pretty much tore our franchise down, trading Josh Jacobs, getting rid of Carr there. I know it was time for Carr to go, but I think Carr deserved a full year with Adams and see how that panned out. Him and Adams and Josh Jacobs, but I do think you're right. We do need a QB, and hey, the Niners literally just cleared house, and the Broncos almost took everybody in.
Well, we'll
So,
see. It's the beauty, and thanks, GP, for your call. We appreciate it. The beauty of the NFL is you can go from not being relevant to relevant overnight. All right, tomorrow we got our Kings Roundtable.
We do, 4 p.m. Talking
Looking
hoops
forward
with
to that.
Jerry. Yeah, can't wait for that as well. You doing a night show as well, or are we just doing the roundtable?
Just doing the roundtable tomorrow, and then we'll look forward to getting going on Thursday with the Kings and the Warriors, and then the Kings and the Suns on Friday. Looking forward to that. Good show, Ryan. Thanks for coming on with me tonight.
Yeah.
Always great having you co-host with me.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. And thank all of you out there for calling in and being in the chat.
Appreciate it. We'll talk to you tomorrow, 4 o'clock. Jerry Reynolds right here with the Kings Roundtable. Bye-bye.